Oh shit, I fucked up now. Fuck.
What happened?
I didn't have your screen maximized. Now I have it maximized.
Try one more time?
Yeah, we don't have to sleep.
I got a system overload.
It's waiting to connect.
We got it on the last one.
I'm not hearing that.
Oh yeah, it wants me to log in again. Shit. Listen to...
That's not good.
What?
Son of a bitch. There, got it. It's coming through. Hey, welcome to the Mixorcist. CW, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, EB. You having a good week?
Yeah, not too bad.
I'm having a great week. I tell you why. We got some plugin releases, man. I'm excited.
We sure do, man. Got the email last night.
Hey, listen. Say again?
Got the email last night.
I got the email last night.
Yeah.
Same here, and I downloaded it first thing this morning. Hey, I got a question for you before we roll, though.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Jason?
Oh, the original. The
original?
Little kid by the lake and yeah. You know.
So the kid in part one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd say so because, I mean, it goes on from there, but that's the one I know the most, and I don't know, that's just always, I think what I'm always going to picture in my mind. I do like the different variations, just like they had, variations in Halloween and so forth, and even with the reboots and stuff, there's just something about that original, the first face that you saw, right, that will be kind of forever burned in one's imagination, so to speak.
That's a good point. You know, there's the supernatural Jason, there's the burnt to a crisp, resurrected 9 times Jason. But my favorite, and this may be controversial, is from part 3, the 3D one.
Okay.
I'll tell you why, because at the end of it, in the dream sequence, when he's supposed to be dead, but all of a sudden he pops up and he's looking out the window at whatever the girl's name is in the boat. And I swear to God, he's smiling at you. Like, I'm going to mess you up and I'm going to enjoy doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my favorite Jason right there. Hey, listen, Brainworks, who we've been big users of their stuff for a long time. My first plugin was the Mag EQ when it was one of the few plugins that they did. They just released and they're always coming up with great new releases, but they just pumped out the U76 preamp along with the compressor to go with it. Now I've had this in the UAD platform for a while, but now it's native and I really like it. You and I are both playing with it today and it's got some killer tones. Should we dig in?
Absolutely.
Let me play, I'll disable the plug here, but let me play an Apple drum sample. Have a listen. All right. Pretty good sounding loop. I dig the bass drum. It's nice and big and boomy in the subs. And I like, or not even quite the subs, but just sub 100. And I like the tambourine and the snare. It sounds like a steel snare to me. So it's got, I don't know, it's crisp and it wants a little bit of warming up. So let's see what this bad boy can do. Let me introduce you to the Brainworks NEOLD V76, not U76, V76. All right, let us dig in, and I want to try, first, just let's hear what the plugin does with nothing on it. Compressor's off, everything's good to go. So first without, track that bass drum with your ears now. Have a good listen. And with. Without. And with. There's a bit of a gain change there, but did you notice that the low seems to reach a bit deeper, but also the kick drum beater seemed to have a bit more of a point on it? It was just a touch more aggressive. Not like, I mean, nothing that you would hear and go, oh, wow, what a difference. But it's there. Listen again to that kick drum and listen for it to get a little deeper and a little more pointed. Here comes without. With. It's not radically changing the sonics, but it's adding something really special. I would use this on a kick drum or a bass guitar any day of the week or any loop that wanted something special in the bottom end. Now, if you want to get rid of some of that low end, it's got a really nice 80K filter, and this filter is smooth. Watch what it does. First, let's listen without, and then you'll hear me engage it. listen to the bass drum. Cleans up the basement beautifully without taking anything away that you'd miss. There is a linear button here that I think goes from like a non-linear, slightly more distorted, maybe some crazy harmonics in there, to something a bit more neutral. The neutral one doesn't tinker with the bass quite as much, but it's a small difference. So let's play with the things that make a bigger dent on the sound. Here's the 300K filter. Have a listen to this. Without. Now, maybe not so useful for a drum kit, but certainly you can imagine a vocal or a synth pad or something that's taken up a lot of room in the low end where it's not as needed would really benefit from that filter. Listen as I switch on the 80 and the 300 at the same time. Back to just 300. So again, it takes out just a modicum more of the low end, and I'm not sure if this is 2 shelves or 2 dips or what this frequency curve is, but it really helps tidy up that sound. Now, I actually wouldn't want to remove most of that bass. I want to show you the compressor. Let's put it in compressor mode. Let's dig in with a fast attack and a fast release, and let's have a listen before and after. So this is without. And this is with. Without. With.
Really?
Now it's really bringing things out and giving a little bit of, let's call it maybe a touch of tube crunch, maybe a bit of saturation. But notice the meters. We're not really driving the comp that hard. Have a look. It's not really doing anything, but there's no threshold control, no ratio either. So here's what you do. You grab the gain and you drive it all the way up. Let's max it out. It's 76. Now have a listen. All right. Now, why don't we kick in the filter's in right now, which probably means it's leaving the bass alone a little bit. Let's take it out and see if it tames it a bit. No filter. Filter. Off. You can hear it actively not only reduce the volume of the low end, but also it's compressing it more. Now, when you move away from the really short attack times or the short release times, it pumps less. And let's have a listen now. Okay, so this is fast and a little more moderate. So there it's applying more of a leveling and a smoothing, but it's taking away the aggression and the grabbiness of the compressor. I like that sound a lot. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I really love it. I mean, it's on the fast setting. I was reading the manual on the fast setting. It was like, I think it's a half a millisecond or less. If you put it on auto, what it'll do is it'll automatically move that ratio between 1 millisecond and like 10 milliseconds, depending on what it's getting. So it depends how much of that transient you want to squeeze out of it. I imagine that it'd be like a lot more transient on auto and maybe not quite as much ability to turn the volume of it up, right? Consequently. But, But I'm hearing what's impressing me a lot about this is the release. I'm really hearing that release action, and it sounds the way that I remember like an old tube compressor is supposed to sound. I'm really hearing that breathing underneath, and it's smooth, and it wasn't fluttering or like, you know, and it was a complex, it's like a complex release curve, right? You can't always predict what's going to happen. And that's, I think, very musical sounding to me, you know?
I agree too. Just very natural. I mean, you can't make this thing sound awful, right? So the last thing that I think I wanted to show you here is that the difference between limit and comp is very hard to hear, but I noticed if you crank the volume a bit, especially at higher settings, that the compressor has more of a warming effect in comp mode. In limit mode, it seems to let more of the early transients through, but when it hits a ceiling, it's a very gentle and transparent compression. So let's go back to the aggressive settings. I'm going to switch this to auto. You got to listen on good headphones or good speakers, but see if you can hear the difference. Listen for overall warmth and body. See if it changes. This is comp. Limit. Comp. Comp. Limit. I really feel like there's a touch more squeeze when in comp mode than there is in limit mode, and it has a tendency to bring what here is a very present low end up to the 4, and just makes it a little more enveloping. But again, it's really difficult to hear. What I'm most impressed with this preamp is those curves, though. So I threw it on some acoustic guitar. Let's just have a quick listen here. And for this, I brought in that 80 plus 300 and just the 300. So this is recorded with a Neumann TLM, which is, if you know the mic, it's frustratingly complex in the bottom end and can be a little bit harsh in the top end. So I backed off of it a touch, recorded the acoustic. It was a shallow bowl ovation, and I was about 1.5 feet away from it. So it should have some proximity effect, but not a ton, but enough to annoy you. So with nothing on it, let's have a little listen here. Compressor's off, okay? Now you can hear the wood of the guitar, too prominent. Let's try the 80 filter first. Without. With. Now that might be enough to take some of the rumble out, but it didn't really do anything to the sound. Let's try the 300. There we go. Without. And with. Now that's totally untreated, no compression, no nothing. Let's try it with both EQ pieces engaged. Without and with. So nothing really happening there, taking away from the top end, but it's definitely cleaning up that basement once again, but in a way that you almost wouldn't need to reach for an EQ now necessarily, unless you wanted to boost the mid-range for some unknown reason. But that would have an easier time fitting into a mix, and I really appreciate that built-in curve on that microphone because it's so hard to tame. And I even tried it on voice and had the exact same effect. Just totally cleaned up that difficult bottom end, but left enough of the juicy body of the signal intact, ready for mixing. So Eric, what did you use it on?
Oh, I tried it on a few things, and yeah, let me share it up. And while I'm doing it, I'll just say that the way that takes out the way it takes out the low end is unobtrusive. I don't hear like a huge resonant bump. I don't hear it's imposing, like it's trying to replace the low end you took out with a whole bunch of, I mean, I could be wrong about that, but to me, it just sounds like, I wouldn't say completely clinical, but I would say, is this working?
Super musical.
You getting me now?
I'm getting you.
Yeah, but
you know what I did
musical,
find?
Yeah.
If you tried on the drum kit or if you tried it on a mix, that 80 and or 300. So the 80 always sounds great, but the 300 may not be your taste, let's say on a mix or on maybe a more full bodied instrument. But on that microphone, which had a problematic proximity effect, it absolutely did the trick.
Yeah, and it did away. And you can totally get away with, like, going up to 300 is kind of sometimes drastic on an instrument, like to get up that high without significantly changing the timbre. And I would say you can notice it when it's soloed, but in a mix, I mean, that might be exactly what you want to be able to put the acoustic right up.
That's why I really should read the manual. I'm curious if that's maybe a dip rather than a shelf.
Well, I think I wanted to take a look at the actual curves, but I guess what I'll do first, if I can find it here.
Your mother's in here with us, Karis. Would you like to leave a message? I'll see that she gets it.
All right, so what I did, I threw it on a mix first, and again, this is when it occurred to me that there is some curvature going on, even when it's flat. All right, let's go without. In. Getting some nice warmature on the lows and the low mids. I'll take it out now. Here's the bass without it. Now check this out. I'm going to drop it in now. Bass City. I'm hearing like a bump that's kind of low, maybe around like 40, 30 even, maybe like low. Just making it round out on the bottom. And then I noticed the top does sound quite beautiful, but it got a little bit distant for a mastering situation for me. And I was also hearing that maybe a little bit of the upper mids might be dipped a bit. But that warmness, and listen to the way the compressor is handling it. I could crank this up, and it's not farting out. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just you can hear already just from this mix how well it's probably going to end up doing on bass, right? So which led me to my next. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say the only downside I saw so far is the gain staging was a little unfamiliar for me. So I did find that when you kick the compressor in at low settings, you had to pull the makeup gain way down. And when you really crank the compressor, it actually reduced the volume more significantly than I would have noticed on any other compressor I've used. So there's a touch of either a learning curve or maybe some adaptation to get used to that, because I think when you say the top end got a little distant, I wonder if you maybe shifted the makeup gain a touch.
Yeah, that could have happened.
Might have recovered some of it.
So what I pulled up here was just the flat mix, I think, with nothing going on. And I pull up the analyzer just so you get a head around what's happening here. And as you can see here, it's like here's that bottom end dip, which is, I mean, that's low. That's down at, I can't read it. Can't read it. It's like probably 20, 30, 40, I don't know. And it flattens off, but not really until it gets into, oh God, I wish I could read this a little better. I don't know, 200. Then it's flat, flat, flat. And it starts to go down below the 0 mark, right? I don't know, 1K, 2K. By the time it gets to like 4K, it's quite dipped. If half a dB is quite dipped, I guess it is in mastering. And then, then it just rolls off naturally. I think the way that the original units did. But this is where I got to play with the different curves to see what do those filters look like. We knew how they sounded now, so let's engage them. See, not extremely resonant. No big bump there. It just took out your 80. Nothing. And there's a little bump there, but that was kind of already there when it was flat too. So let's see here. See how that's smooth. Oh yeah, it does not look like, say, what a Neve or curve would look like.
Not at all. No.
And then here's with both at once. Now that's interesting because you're curious about that. It's actually
so it doesn't look like a dip. It's a compound shelf.
It's kind of letting more of the bottom through, actually, in a way, right? Soon, it's steeper.
Yeah.
So, sorry. It's like
there's a sharper elbow on that.
Yeah. Anyways, really cool. It's clean curves. So, and then the other interesting thing I found is what's going on with this 3 kilohertz filter, which is that's an odd place to put a high cut, isn't it? But that is what the original had, right? You got to keep in mind these were originally like a company was for broadcasting, right? Like they made broadcast equipment and receivers and that sort of thing. They were early company, Telefunk, and they were like competitors with Marconi, and they go back, really? Right? Yeah. And look at that one there. I'm going to move this out of the way. That is just interesting. It gives you your dip, but then it just goes, oh no, wait a minute, we're just going to let just a little bit more top through.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go straight down. So anyway, interesting curves. I have not seen these anywhere else on any other
No, I agree.
plug-in. I guess I suppose there's maybe other models of this unit that would get you, but nothing else that I have anyway. So this was a great treat for me to try it out. Anyway, I thought, okay, well, so maybe on this mix, maybe not so much.
Damien.
Again, that's a mastering situation.
Damien.
But what happens on drums was my next question. I said, well, that's what I'm going to find out. I'm going to take just a kick and snare. There's no overheads, no room, no nothing. This is just the raw, the raw tracks. There are 2 microphones. Make sure I've got this right. I'm going to disable NEOLD on both of them. Here we go. Kick and snare, nothing on it. Okay, and then on the kick drum, I'm going to engage it now. And then the snare. Oh, come on. Snare engaged. Hear that extra ring from the snare that's from the compression.
Totally. You can hear the shell all of a sudden. That's great.
Brings up all that sustain. And I mean, that's a good feat for digital compression, right? Because you have to program quite a bit of complexity to get that effect and to get it smooth. You know, it just doesn't that just doesn't happen with basic math usually, right? You have to really. I don't know what their modeling procedure is. If they mimic every component, or if they do maybe Spice model or something, and then port it over. But anyway, that doesn't matter so much. It's just listen to that sustain. I love it. Is this already? Yeah, this is already cranked. That'd be why. But this is on auto. If I turn it to fast, I bet you'd hear. Yeah, on the snare there.
It grabs the transient a bit more.
Yeah, it does. I mean, maybe more than you'd want, or maybe this is in parallel, and that's exactly what you'd want, right? Let's try. That's on limit mode, by the way. Let's go to compressor mode. I'm back on auto attack. Here's compressor. Actually, this is a little fatter sounding to me.
That's what I was saying. It seems to warm it up and give it a gentle hug. Almost like what you might get normally out of a very Mew.
So that makes me wonder what's on the kick. Was the kick also on limit? No, the kick's on compressor. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, with the bass filter's not on the kick. So now I'm thinking, oh, maybe that kick will be like a little bit better if I let take a bit of low end out of that side chain. So
yeah, sure.
Here we go. Oh, yeah. You hear that?
Do it again.
Out. In.
Oh, yeah.
Just on the very bottom there, right?
Yep.
Now, are we cranked here on the gain? Nope, there's still more to go. Ooh. Auto, we're fast. Compressed. Like, that's really compressed. Maybe more than you'd want to compress a kick. I don't know. Depends what kind of mix, right?
It's punching pretty good.
Yeah.
Any more compression, I'd start hearing too much ring.
Yeah. And again, it's not farting out. And that was always my problem with digital compressors in the early days, like for plug-in compressors. They just fall apart when you try to do stuff like this. And these ones don't, which is great. Good for Brainworks, because that's awesome. That really sounds good to me. It really sounds like a good tube comp or something, you know.
So where would you use this? I would use this not on a mix. And in fact, if you look at the presets, there's no mix or master presets. It's all individual track presets, which makes sense and kind of in line with what we're saying, is that it's not a tone shaper and it does what it does. And if you don't like what it does, you pick something else. But if you like the curves and those curves help you fit into a mix.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one of the things I love doing is choosing things like preamps, microphones, and so on, so that you can minimize the amount of EQing that you have to do, because EQing always introduces some degree of distortion. And the more EQs you put in the mix, the more that compounds. and becomes out of your control. Where if you treat this like a musical instrument and you say this for the kick fits it perfectly into this rock mix just the way I like it. Using a Neumann TLM 103 and an acoustic guitar at close range, it does a perfect job of shelving out the areas that are problematic. So where would you use it? When would you select this tool versus not?
I would, if I had something that was a bit too bright, that just was a little too harsh in the upper mids for sure. Something with a lot of low end in it that I want to just smooth out. I'm thinking in particular, the first thing that comes to my mind is bass. And I think if you ask people who own the real unit, that's also probably one of the favorite things to do with it. So I got a bass track up here so we could hear what's going on with that. Here's nothing on it. Pretty solid sound, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's just a DI. And then I'll just put in what I had. Whoa.
Yeah.
It's had a lot of
takes
grit.
A bunch out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's got a lot of grit on it. Like that might be a bit too much gain. There we go. Here, come back.
Yep.
There we go. And again, that gets back to the way that this works maybe a little bit differently than some of the other plugins you might be used to. I reduced the input gain there, and it got louder because it was hitting the compressor less. Because what this is it's a volume balanced gain, right? So when I turn up the input gain, it's going to turn the output by the same amount. I guess in theory, it kind of gives you a bit of an equal loudness thing going on, so you can not be deceived by that extra bump. But I really like what this is doing. And this is set for auto attack, pretty quick release. I bet you I could maybe get a little, let's try one of these level dependent releases. That's nice. These black ones are like a constant release.
6.
3 point, yeah. Yep. And these are more like program dependent. Right. I should say program dependent release. That's pretty nice. I find sometimes. Out
of curiosity, what happens with the 300 filter?
Oh, with the 3K or the 300?
No, the 300 and the 3K. But let's try the 300.
Well, that's going to just take out all your low end, right?
Do it again. Yeah, too much. However, just the 80, there's too much noisy low end there. It won't.
No, the 80 wasn't on. So let's try the 80. That might be the ticket.
Oh, I thought you had it on.
I think it was flat.
Okay. All right.
That's good. I could live with that.
Pretty good.
Let's hear what it was flat. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of DIs, there's a lot of rumble.
Yeah, this is a reggae track, by the way.
Oh yeah.
But 80 I could live with totally.
It's pretty nice.
I like that. Let's hear what that 3K does now that we're on the topic.
Sure.
Here. It's doing something. It's not doing a ton in this situation. Again, because I think that there really isn't a lot of signal above 3K in a bass track like this anyway. So you're not missing it as much really on this particular track. But again, there's a little bit of brilliance going on with this, where it will remove the frequency, but not in a way that just screams, "Oh, I've cut out all the high end all of a sudden." So anyway, I'll probably leave it like that. I like these. I'm liking these slower releases. Maybe I'm not hitting it that hard. Let's hit it a bit harder. I am liking that. Yeah, it's just beautiful the way that release works. The slow, there's a grittier bass here, another example.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just, you can hear without it. It's just making it sit.
Yeah.
Like you could mix with this, but it's just, it's kind of not very forward, You might have trouble fitting it, but this just it just grabs it, pushes it ahead. Cleaned up a little tiny bit of that rumble. Yeah, I love this on bass. I loved what it did to the drums. I imagine, and I don't have an example, but I imagine on a vocal it would really fatten up. The right vocal would really benefit from this.
Totally.
Yeah. And maybe on reverb returns and stuff. I mean,
that's what I was thinking too. It could warm it up nice, and really tighten it up and
Mm-hmm.
get it sitting in a mix properly.
Yeah, or echoes and all the stuff that if you had the real units, you probably only have one, or maybe you're lucky and you have two of them because they're really expensive now, and so you wouldn't be using them on reverb returns. But in plugin world, you get to do stuff like that.
You can plug in world totally do it. Absolutely. Well, that's the thing we talked about. Assassinating tools and really using this in ways that it wasn't meant to, but it's going to do things that you wouldn't have expected. And so I try it on everything, guys. Give it a shot. Those little buttons, so not the black knobs, but the tall things. I don't know what they are. Handles. I can't figure it out, but it's like, it looks like a crypt, and it looks like I'm supposed to go in there and find stuff. So I just want to know what's in the box, man. What's in the box?
No one's ever explained to me what they are.
I keep clicking them.
I haven't seen these units in real life. Part of me wants to think that there's a tube underneath, and that's how you would change out the tube. But I don't know if that's
maybe
true, or maybe there are like trim pots under there. Maybe somebody write in the comments what actually is that for? What's underneath that thing? Because I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've even seen it in real life, but no one would tell me. Maybe if I had asked them.
Brainworks is so good at clicking. Like they'll have on their guitar sims, they'll have a button you click at the top that flips it around, and you can tweak the back panel controls and stuff. So I would think if there was tweakability, they would have modeled it. So I'm thinking that's where they store the dead things, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
that's where they go.
Relatively speaking, you could probably fit like 3-4 bodies in there
easily. Easily, without a doubt.
So.
All right. So I think, if you're looking for something with more character, I would recommend trying Brainworks Lindell 80. That's a wonderful Neve emulation that's got the aggressive saturation, the heavier compression, and the more resonant EQ curves, if that's what you're feeling like. But if you want some tube warming without massive saturation, they also make the SPL twin tube, which has got to be one of my favorite plugs that they make. But this thing here, I mean, hell, if you're recording stuff on a Focusrite Scarlett and you just want to level up the richness of the tone, I mean, I know it's not the same as recording through one direct, but it can really sweeten things up. So I highly recommend you grab this. Brainworks has subscription options, or Plugin Alliance has subscription options that make it easy for you to have these things the minute they come out without having to pay, new release retail price. I think that's really smart.
Yeah.
And I personally love this on the low end stuff like the kicks, where you want a dimensional subsonics. I'm really impressed with it. But I also liked what it did with, I use this on U87 for a podcast recording, and it really shined.
Oh yeah. And I'm absolutely in love with what this is doing to bass tracks.
Totally.
It's doing what I try to get a lot of other compressors to do, and they won't. But this one just seems to do it. So with less effort, right? Less controls, less things to mess up too. So
I agree. So guys, check it out for yourself. Demo it, 14-day trial. And by the way, we're tired of using our own mixes. So please, all you artists out there, get your copyright free, especially if they're your own compositions and you're willing to let us play with your stems on the air to demo these plugins. Send them to us. info@mixorcist.com. Reach out. Let's talk.
Yep.
Meantime, congratulations to Plugin Alliance Brainworks on another great plug. I like this one. It's in my collection. Eric, what do you think?
Love it. I do. I think it's a really, it feels like a leap forward as far as that compressor goes. Compressors have been getting pretty good, especially this last year or two. The competition's been raised, and I think that they are definitely up to the challenge as this plugin is showing.
Yeah, but their purple is also a great compressor. What else do they do that was really great sounding? Their Acme is another good one. Very unique, different.
That's right.
Not the usual 1176 LA2 clones, but always something special. And also these guys, what they did with console. So the Neve, I forget which model it was, the V something, and the SSL 4000. And they've got a couple of more at this point. Those were really great tactile tools, channel strips that just sounded good and worked and were great for tone shaping. These guys kind of, I think they really upped the game about 3 years ago when they put those out. So definitely a company to watch and check
Definitely
out this
watch.
plug. You love it.
I mean, then Lindell, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that thing is fantastic.
Killer.
And if you didn't,
Yes,
if
sir.
you didn't know, there has been talk online that there may be an API coming out.
Oh,
So when they do
stoked
that,
for
because I know how much you love
Mhm.
that sounds. So
I do. I really like it, you know?
it's got it. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't go wrong with it, really. You know, it's
Yeah, I agree. I
classic,
agree, man.
classic Americana.
So, hey,
Yeah.
we got this. Hopefully we got this out the day that the plugin came out so you could, research up and check it out. And we'll do more as these guys put out more stuff. We'll be there to bring it to you.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it for us guys here on the Mixorcist. You know, it's the daylight, sun is rising. Time to get back into our coffins and go back to sleep.
They look sort of like this, actually, on the screen there.
Where am I looking? Oh, yeah.
That's maybe they're coffins.
Exactly.
It's
I
like
think that's what they are.
Correct. All right, rock and roll,
That's
people.
sick. Later, EB.
Later.